Welcome to Stories from the NNI. I'm Lisa Friedersdorf, Director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Heather Clark, Professor of Bioengineering and Chemistry at Northeastern University and Director of the Institute for Chemical Imaging of Living Systems. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. To get us started, can you tell us how you became involved in nanotechnology?
I started out as an analytical chemist because I was just so interested in the science of measuring different things. And as I progressed in that field, nanotechnology drew me in because it is the development of tools that are on a very small scale, which then fits with a biological system and gives an ability to measure on a scale that was not possible before. And I just loved that idea that there's so much happening at a scale that I can't see with my eye, but that I can develop tools to illuminate that information.
I understand that you're using measurement tools or sensors to investigate living systems. Can you talk a little bit about your work in sensors?
Yes, so we create sensors to illuminate the chemistry or the biochemistry of the body. And each one of those is basically composed of some sort of element to recognize what we're trying to measure, that molecule, some sort of reporter to tell us that that event occurred, and a scaffold to hold it all together. And so one of the areas we're working on right now is to measure acetylcholine, which is a signaling molecule between the nervous system and the organs of your body. And understanding how that is regulated is really important to different therapeutics.
How is nanotechnology involved?
So it's a scale issue. So if you were smaller, we wouldn't be able to incorporate all those different elements, that recognition element, that reporter, as easily. And if we were larger, then we would become more invasive. So it would be harder to get a probe in where we're trying to measure. And if you think about it, what we're trying to do is measure how the nerves communicate with an organ in the body, let's say the bladder or the heart. And that's a really small area to have to make a measurement in. And so if we can develop a tool that can fit in that scale, then we can illuminate chemistry that nobody else can.
You mentioned that you started out as an analytical chemist, and as you described your work, you talk about measuring molecules, which I think of as chemistry, but then combining that with a living system, biology, and then I would venture that there has to be some electronics or optics involved in your sensors and communicating the information, which I would maybe say is physics or electrical engineering. So it seems like you're spanning a lot of disciplines. Can you talk about interdisciplinarity in your work?
Interdisciplinary nature of science is key right now, and particularly key to what we're trying to do. And so students and postdocs from all different areas of engineering and science are part of the research in my lab. So we have engineers, bioengineers, chemical engineers, we have chemists and biologists, and we're all working together. And I think that bringing those different backgrounds really is the key to solving problems, because we can envision how our tool is going to work when we're designing it, but we really don't know how it's going to work until we get it into the system, into the body. And once we do, we encounter problems, right? So how do we fix this? It takes all sorts of different backgrounds to design this, because maybe it's a chemistry problem. But then, as you mentioned, optics are involved. So maybe it's a physics problem. And so we have to really not always just come at it from one particular background, because otherwise we would try to solve that problem the same way every time. But really, it's so many different parts.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and get your perspective on the advancements in nanotechnology. And over the past 20 years, a lot has changed. What do you think are some of the most exciting advancements that have happened? And then also looking forward, where do you see the most exciting opportunities?
I have to say that with the pandemic, the clear answer is the nanoscale drug delivery vehicles that have been developed and how quickly they moved into a final product that really has changed the way that we think of vaccine development. And it's amazing that this was done all over the course of a year. But I think what it really points to, and this is, I think, the future, is that a lot of research and development went into that tool. so many years of work went in, and then it was ready, right? We had it ready for then use into a new area. And it was just a small step. We didn't have to go back and try to get 20 years of development in there. For me, I think about this a lot, and that the challenge is really trying to push technologies out of our labs where they might be useful for what we're working on, but we need to get them useful for what other people are working on and bridge that valley of death, right, between publishing a really cool paper and getting it into the hands of other people so that they can use it for their own discovery.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that looking at the opportunities, not just through interdisciplinary activities, but through collaboration in communities of interest where we have opportunities to share work that perhaps people wouldn't see in their own lab or in their own development activities. What is the makeup of your student researchers? Do you have undergraduates, graduate students? What type of disciplines do you recruit? And do you have any advice that you give students?
Yeah, so our students, graduate students, undergraduate students, and we have the occasional high school student come in and do an internship as well. I try to pair students with projects. Obviously, we bridge from early stage sensor discovery all the way through imaging in animal models. And so I try to pair their background and research interests with where in that spectrum their interests lie, and then let them develop around that central theme. We're very chemistry heavy, but we're also very biology and engineering heavy. And so I guess I would give students who were maybe coming up through high school or undergrad the advice that if you're interested, I mean, it really doesn't matter what your major is. It really matters that you find some research and get involved. And that is really going to inform how you move forward. So finding that right fit for a research lab and, just ask faculty, do you have something? And, if they don't, hopefully they can point you in the direction of somebody that might have an opening. And that's the best way to get involved.
Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and share a little bit about your research. Do you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
I just want to circle back a little bit to the students who might be coming up through high school like me with a non-science background, and to say, don't be intimidated about trying to get involved in the process. I was interested and just looked for opportunities where I could get involved, and people will help. And I think that don't be intimidated by the process and not knowing exactly how to navigate through, because whether it's other students or faculty, people will help out.